Hi and welcome to my playhouse, and today I'm still at work, but we have an IBM or a Lenovo, and it's the x3850 X5, and I wanted to open this up and show what's inside, so let's go do that. First we had the front of the server, and there is not much here. All is covered in a plastic thing. There's room for a DVD drive down here, and there is something here called ESO, and that's actually for a wristband like this to plug in. I normally had this crocodile connection on there, but you can take that off and this plugs in there, and you have your anti-static wristband connected to the server. So that's kind of a unique system for that. Then we have a couple of USB 2 connections over here. We have some light diodes that is hidden in here. We have a cover, so you can cover up so you are not able to press the on-off button as easily. It sits on this menu. It's a light path diagnostics, where it will tell you if something is wrong with the server. It also gives you a code for what could be wrong if there is something wrong. Then there is the light tower button. If you press the light tower, it will light up blue, and it will also do that on the back of the server, so that the server is easier to locate on the back. Then there is the system name over here, system x3850 X5. There's room for 8 hard drives in here, starting from number 0 ending at 7, and there's an IBM logo, and you can actually take off the cover here. It's just a plastic cover that gives you access to the fans in here, and these fans are hot pluggable. You can see they have a orange, so you can change out a fan. Never needed to. They don't break, but they can be changed. There are 2 of those, and not much more right here. You can also take out this optical drive if there was one in there. This is just a filler. We don't use that in servers much. So, and the same thing with the light path diagnostic. You can take it out. You would have to release the cables somewhere, I think, maybe. I don't really know. It's a weird option. I'm not gonna mess with that. The server is working very well. So let's put the cover back on and go around to the back. Around the back there is not really much to see either. One thing that was really missing on the front is this VGA connection. There is no VGA connection on the front of this server, and that's kind of irritating when you have to manage the server. But let's start over here. There is 7 PCI Express ports. One of them is an X16, the other one's X8s, all of them. The X16 over here is able to supply 75 watts. So that would be where you put in your graphics card if you wanted to do that. There's 2 very big power supplies, and they have a really unique system. They are locked in place here, and if you have to get them out, you have to unlock it here and push this lever up, and then you can take out the power supply. This is actually a bit fun. If you are in the United States, the voltage is over here. It can take from 100 volts to 127 volts, and in that case this is able to supply 875 watts in this power supply. But if you are in the EU like we are, we have somewhere between 220 and 240 volts. In that case, the power supply can supply 1975 watts. That's 1100 watts more than if you're using the same power supply in the United States. I've never seen that before. It has a really funny feature with this lever that goes up and down. So see this connection? We could just put it up here. When I pull the lever down, the connectors go down. So before I can take out the power supply, I have to disconnect it. And I have never seen this before. So I thought this was really cool. So we can put it back in. Like that. And as long as the power lever is up there, there's no power on. So when we pull it down, there, power is connected. So it's like a big power connector that you can take up, something like that. The special sound effects is of course totally copyrighted by me. And then when you connect it again, you pull the lever again, and so that's cool. Otherwise, we have two Ethernet connectors, 1 and 2 gigabit connectors. There is a management port. There is the VGA connection right there. There is a serial port. There is 4 USB ports, all of which is USB 2. Down here we have something called MPI warp core cards. That's because this server can be connected to another server like it. In that case, you change out these cards. It's more or less just a weird little metal box. There's not really anything in it. It's just a big connector. But if you want to connect this server to another server and have the two servers work together as if they were one server, you need other cards for that. So you would change out these QPI warp cards in that case. As with most servers these days, there's a big explanation on top of the server about what everything is. On this server, it's not inside the LED, it's on the top of the LED. And to start up here, we have how the memory cartridges work, hot pluggable power supplies, PCI Express cards, microprocessor, system board, light path diagnostic, RAID card is there. We have operator information panel, hot swap fans, and hard drive bay thingies. And we have down here we have the ordering numbers for frequently changeable units. If something breaks or if you want to rebuild it, you need a new power supply, there is the order number for that right there. So let's get inside. Let's take this off. And it has its own little lever here. Let's see, nothing on the inside. So this is what the server looks like when you just open it up. There is a big metal cover over here that can be removed like this. You release these two and you pull it up like that, and that gives you access to actually see the CPUs. They are right here. There's 4 CPUs in this system. Each of these CPUs are 10 cores in this particular system. 10 core CPUs, so a total of 40 cores with hyperthreading, that is 80 logical threads. These are the 48 or 8850s, so they are 2 gigahertz processors, which is a big disadvantage for a system like this. It runs at really low frequency. It has a lot of cores, but each core does not run at a very high speed. You can get other processors with less cores and some with more cores that also runs at a higher frequency. But when we got this, we got the 2 gigahertz processors in here. So over here we have the expansion cards. Right now there is some 10 gigabit Ethernet cards right here, and these are some fiber channel storage cards, but well, that really doesn't matter. Down here is the X16 slot, where you could put in a graphics card. Awesome. but not much else here. The power plugs for that graphics card is actually hidden down here. They are really hard to see. There's a 6-pin connector right there, and there's an 8-pin connector right there. So the server should be able to handle very big graphics cards. The 8-pin connector is 150 watts. The 6-pin connector is 75 watts. So a total with the 75 watts in the slot over here is a graphics card that uses about 300 watts. Down here, very well tucked away and a bit difficult to access, is the bootable USB sticks. There is 2 of them, so you can boot on one of them, or you can set this up in some other way. Need redundancy, or if you have one USB stick with the operating system and have one USB stick with something else, that's an option. It's rather hard to get in here and exchange them, so you can actually pop up the power supplies, and that gives you better access. We can just kind of see that I've already popped them out a little bit. So if I do that, take the power supply out, I could get my hand in here and exchange that. That would be a lot easier that way. And there is actually a USB stick in here, and it also contains VMware. So put that in and log it back in place, and well, that's what I found is the easiest way to get those in and out. Besides the 4 CPUs, which is located there, this server is also able to handle a lot of memory. There is 8 memory cartridges here, and if we just take one of these up, in each memory cartridge there is room for 8 memory slots. So 8 times 8, that's 64 memory blocks that is available in the server. That brings the server up to a total of 2 terabytes of memory. If all these memory blocks are filled with blocks of 32 gigabytes. These are only 16 gigabytes and it's only half full. So right now the server has 512 gigabytes of memory. So, well, there's still a lot of memory, right? These cartridges have a little battery over here. It's not a real battery, it's actually a kind of a super capacitor that is sitting right there. So if there is an error here, there is also a little button. So I could take this up and press the button, and if there was something wrong with this one, there is a little LED right there that would light up and say this is the memory block that is bad, and I could change that. So yeah, that's how that works. Also up here there is also a button reminding everybody that is the cartridge with the memory error. So let's put this back. This server is not really meant to be a storage server. There is only the 8 disks on the front, and this particular server is actually only 4 empty bays as well. And down here, just beneath my anti-static thing, is the RAID controller. And this is an okay RAID controller. This is an LSI controller, but it's of course Lenovo / IBM branded. And this is the M1015 that is in here. And this one is able to do 2 terabytes. And this controller is able to take do JOB and the IT configuration. So this is a good controller, but it's not widely used in this server. You see it boots from the USB stick, and we don't even have any disks in this server. But it sits on a weird plastic thing here because it's impossible to get down here with your hands. So that's how you do that. You put that back in. Installed. Pretty awesome, right? There is also some fans here. Hot pluggable. You can take these up, put them back down. There is not much else on the system board. This is rather dull down there, and it's very hard to get your hands down there if you wanted to do something down there. You can take the server more apart, slide some of this out, but it's kind of a big job to do that. Also, the back plane of the discs over here has their own little blue thing here where you can pull this up, and that's the power thing for the back planes of the disc. This server is really not meant to be taken apart, but it has been necessary from time to time to actually do something. To take it apart, you have to take all the memory cartridges out, and you have to release some thingies over here, and you can take a big part of the memory thing up here. And then there's a little blue thing here which releases a handle that releases the whole back part here, that separates the I/O board here from the system board beneath, and you can slide the system board out the front, but you have to take a lot of other good things apart first. I don't feel that's as good an option as just taking the power supplies out and putting the USB stick down, because I know that underneath here there is a very, very big connector, and if that is damaged in any way, this server is more or less just junk. So let's put this down again, like that. Make sure that it's good and tight. So this server is pretty heavy too. It's recommended that 3 people lift this, and it's no less than 32 kilograms. So, and fully occupied with disk, RAM and processors and all the good stuff, and this gets really heavy. So that's also a thing. It's this server is produced in 2013, the 16th of September it seems. So it's not that old, but this one has been taken out of production for now. The biggest disadvantage of this server is the CPUs. These 10 core CPUs, they are okay. They perform really well. But when you put 4 10 core CPUs in one server, if you have one CPU that performs, let's say it performs 1000, then when you put in one more, you should expect to get 2000 in performance, right? You don't. You get maybe 1800. So when you can only I think you can only put these in 2 at a time. You can have 2 CPUs or 4 CPUs in the server. I'm not totally sure if you can have 1 or 3, but every time you add a processor, you don't get as much. It's much like trying to coordinate with friends to go to the movies. The more friends that is involved, the harder it gets to find the date and the time and where do we want to eat. And it's kind of the same thing with the processor. Each time you add a processor, it becomes a bit more difficult. Yes, it becomes more fun too. It does add performance, but it's not doubling every time you put in a processor. So from 1 to 2, you might go from 1000 to 1800 for 2 processors, right? And then when you add one more, you get 2600 or 2500. Then you add one more, you may be at 3000 performance, just a number, and you've already lost one processor. And that means that each of these cores, and when you're dealing with virtual machines, you give the virtual machine cores. That means that the single core performance goes down, and that means that this server becomes really slow. From when you had one processor over here, you get the performance of 1000, and there is 10 cores in it, so single core performance would be 100. For if you give a virtual machine just one core, that would get the performance number of 100, just a number. As you add processors along the way, this goes down. So if we say that the 4 processors here performs like 3000, that means that we have lost 1/4 of our performance, also per core. So each core is now only worth 75, which is not very good. We lost 25%. If you try this at home, you will most likely see that this is true. The more CPUs you add to a system, the slower the CPU becomes. The system does not become overall slower, you just don't get as much out of the last little bit that you installed. And losing 25% on this is probably pretty generous. You would probably lose even more. Well, that was a look at the Lenovo/IBM
x3850, X5, and the X series is like their own chipset version of these servers, and you can connect 2 of these servers together so that you get a total of 8 CPUs, 4 terabytes of RAM, right? So that's always nice. But as you add more, the single core performance will drop. For licensing purposes, this server is not very good anymore. The licensing models is more and more going over to per core licenses, and buying licenses for 40 cores that are not really that fast, well, that has become a really bad deal. So instead of having 40 slow cores, it's a better deal to go get smaller servers with less cores and higher frequency. So, and that is really why this server is being retired. It has become too expensive in licenses. So it will be replaced with 2 used servers with 2 CPUs and less cores but higher frequency, and CPUs that are more modern and can push more out to the people that need it. So thank you very much for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again, and have a really nice day. Bye bye.